Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
7 years of building this place from the ground up, and all it took was one sentence to erase it all. Your menu is outdated. That's what he told me. Just like that. Like I was a dusty book on the wrong shelf. My name's Elijah Cross. I wasn't born into luxury or opportunity. I was raised in a 2-bedroom house in Pine Hollow, Kentucky, where dinner was less about ingredients and more about heart. My grandmother, Miriam, used to say, "A meal can't fill your soul if it doesn't know where it comes from." That idea followed me into everything I cooked. I moved to Denver when I was 23 with nothing but a duffel bag, a chef's knife I inherited, and a notebook full of family recipes. I found work where I could, small diners, prep kitchens, catering gigs, until I got the chance to be part of something new. A small restaurant was opening in Riverbend, a quiet, upscale neighborhood just outside the city. The owner, Victor Langley, gave me a shot. He said, "Make people feel something." So I did. I was there when we installed the first stove. I handwrote our opening menu myself. No gimmicks. No foam or molecular tricks. Just real food with deep roots. Braised short ribs like my grandfather made in winter, black-eyed pea stew the way my mother used to cook it on Sundays, and a buttermilk pie that made grown men weep. We named the place Juniper Table. Within 2 years, we were booked solid 3 weeks out. Food critics started calling us a hidden southern gem in the Rockies. I never cared about stars or awards. What mattered was seeing families sit down and remember something good. I built a team that felt like home, Carmen on pastry, Malik on the grill, and Fiona running the floor like she was born doing it. But Victor got sick. Cancer. Quiet, fast, cruel. He passed in early spring, and everything changed. His son, Camden, took over. Fresh out of some business program in San Diego. White teeth, designer loafers, and a vocabulary full of buzzwords like rebranding and modernization. I tried to be patient. He'd sit in the dining room with his laptop, sipping imported water and watching the room like a data analyst. One night, he called me in after close. Everyone else had gone home. He was standing by the kitchen window, scrolling through his tablet. "People don't want nostalgia anymore, Elijah," he said. "They want novelty. TikTok-worthy dishes. Global flavor mashups. The future, man." I didn't answer. I was waiting for the part where he'd ask for a compromise, for collaboration. But he never did. Instead, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Your menu is too traditional. We're going to start fresh." I was stunned. 7 years? 7 years of 90-hour weeks, missed holidays, burned hands, and building not just a menu, but a soul. He dismissed it all with 5 words. Too traditional. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I took off my apron, wrapped my knives in the same cloth my grandma embroidered when I graduated culinary school, and walked out. No door slam. No final speech. I left with my silence. But here's the thing Camden didn't understand. People didn't come to Juniper Table because it was trendy. They came because they could taste the truth. And truth doesn't go out of style. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Not because I was hurt. But because I was empty. You don't spend 7 years breathing life into something and then just turn it off. Juniper Table wasn't just a restaurant. It was my second home. It was the only place in this city where I felt like I belonged. I kept replaying Camden's words in my head. Too traditional. What the hell does that even mean? What's too traditional about giving people food that reminds them of where they came from? I sat in my apartment, a small place over on Chestnut and 6th, with my knives on the counter, the apron still folded beside them. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It felt like I'd left a piece of myself inside those walls, and now I was just lighter. But not in the good way. By the next morning, word had started to travel. Carmen texted me first. "He really did it? You're gone?" Then Malik called, confused and furious. Fiona left a voicemail, her voice low and shaken, like someone had died. In a way, something had. The first week after I left, I stayed away. I needed distance. I didn't even walk near Riverbend. I couldn't stand the idea of seeing Juniper Table with someone else's fingerprints all over it. But curiosity's a stubborn thing. By week 2, I started to hear things. The menu had been changed completely. Gone were the slow-cooked, handcrafted dishes. In their place? Global tapas, avocado mousse towers, vegan wagyu sliders, and a cocktail called Grandma's Lemonade, made with lavender foam and CBD tincture. I'm not making this up. Camden had hired a culinary design consultant named Knox something. Tatted to hell, talked in hashtags, cooked like a DJ spins tracks. They even repainted the walls, stripped the dark cherry wood for flat matte black, took out the warm lighting and added neon strips. It wasn't Juniper anymore. It was some kind of Frankenstein Instagram lab. Week 3, the reviews started popping up. The first Yelp headline hit hard. Was my favorite spot, now it's a joke. Then came. Miss the old menu. New food feels soulless. Chef Elijah gone? Never going back. People were angry. Loyal customers, the ones who drove across town for our cast iron cornbread and peach chutney, felt betrayed. And Camden? He didn't respond. He doubled down. Launched a TikTok campaign. Did interviews with local food bloggers. Said this was the next chapter in Denver dining. That tradition was the enemy of innovation. Week 4, I walked by. Late evening. Friday night. The parking lot was nearly empty. 2 cars. One of them probably a staff member's. Through the window, I saw Knox behind the line, plating something with gold flakes on it. But no one was there to eat it. I stood there for a full minute. Not moving. Just watching. And then, for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not out of revenge. Not because they were failing. I smiled because I finally understood something. I was never just an employee. I was the heart. They tried to cut it out. But you can't replace a heart with strategy decks and flavor pairings from a focus group. Food has memory. And mine? It was still alive. That night, I went home and opened the old notebook. The one with the stained pages, my grandmother's handwriting, sketches of dishes I never dared put on a menu. I flipped to the page titled, For When It's Time to Start Over, and I began to write. I didn't decide to open my own restaurant overnight. It wasn't some Hollywood-style epiphany where I shouted, "I'll show them!" into the void. No. It was quieter than that. It started with one spark. A tiny ember that caught light in the silence of my apartment one night, 3 fingers into a glass of bourbon and knee-deep in that old family notebook. There was this one recipe I hadn't looked at in years. Smoked catfish stew with sorghum dumplings. My great-uncle Asa used to make it for reunions every June, out in the fields near Cumberland Lake. It was the kind of dish that tasted like sun, sweat, and stories. I cooked it. Just for myself. And as I took that first bite, something unlocked in me. Not pride. Not nostalgia. Just truth. This is who I am. This is what I do. The next morning, I made a list. Not a business plan. Not a pitch deck. A list of what mattered. A place where people feel welcome. A menu where every dish has a reason. No lies. No marketing fluff. Real food for real people. I didn't have much money. My savings weren't great. But I had enough to start asking questions. I called Fiona. She was still at Juniper, but not for long. They cut my hours, she told me. The new guy wants ambience over attention. I'm not ambience, Eli. I'm a damn floor general. I asked her, half joking. Wanna jump ship? She said yes before I even finished the sentence. Malik came next. He'd already quit. Said he couldn't cook food that looks like art but tastes like confusion. His words, not mine. And Carmen? She said. Tell me when. Tell me where. I'll bring the rolling pin. The team was coming together. Not because I begged. Because they believed. But a team's not enough without a place. So I drove all over Denver. Through Highland Park. Through Cap Hill. Through the tucked-away spots near 5 Points. Then I found it. A closed-down coffee shop on South Pearl. Brick walls. Front windows kissed by morning light. It had a tiny kitchen, warped floors, and a back door that squeaked like a church pew. But it had soul. It had bones. I could see it already. A counter where people could talk to the cooks. No separation. No ego. Wooden tables passed down from someone else's story. And shelves lined with jars, cookbooks, and memories. The rent wasn't cheap. I had to take a risk. I sold my car. Took a small loan from a friend back home. Promised him dinner for life. I signed the lease 2 weeks later. On the way out, the landlord, an old guy named Harvey with a crooked tie and breath like stale peppermints, asked me what I was gonna call it. I paused. Smiled. Miriam's. After my grandmother. The one who taught me that food isn't about perfection. It's about presence. He nodded. Good name. People need places like that again. So that's how it started. Not with revenge. But with reverence. Not with ambition. But with memory. I wasn't trying to disrupt the culinary landscape. I didn't want influencers, branding campaigns, or conceptual dining. I just wanted to cook. For people who missed Sunday dinners. For the ones who were never taught how to make fried okra, but always wanted to learn. For the ones who had a rough week and just needed something warm, something real. The ember had become a flame. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel bitter. I felt ready. They shut the doors exactly 42 days after I walked out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it fell apart. When I signed the lease for Miriam's, I didn't waste time. Every day was hammer, scrub, fix, repeat. The place needed everything: new burners, better plumbing, a fresh coat of soul. We painted the walls ourselves. Fiona chose warm clay tones, said it reminded her of Tennessee kitchens. Carmen hand-stitched linen napkins with little M.S. in the corners. Malik rewired the old fridge using a YouTube video and a lot of prayer. But while we were building, Juniper Table was crumbling. At first, they tried denial. Camden went full PR mode. New flyers. Paid influencers. Ads that said things like, "Old soul, new flavors." That line made me laugh. Then came the desperate changes. They fired Knox. Brought in a new chef, a guy named Everett Pike, formerly of some fusion place in Portland. His thing was deconstructed Appalachian. That meant cornbread in foam form and pickled collard greens folded like origami. Didn't last 3 weeks. The servers quit one by one. First Lauren, then Jamie, then Kai. Fiona kept forwarding me their goodbye texts. All of them said the same thing. It's not the place we loved anymore. But the real shift came when the regulars stopped pretending. There was this one older couple, Ruth and Arlen. Came every Sunday for pot roast and chess pie. Sat in the same booth by the window. Arlen was ex-Navy. Always wore the same old Broncos cap. They stopped coming after they were served a quinoa brisket interpretation that looked like wet granola and tasted like punishment. That's when the place got quiet. Not just in business, in spirit. Even from a distance, I could feel it. One night I got a message from a local reporter I used to know, Dana Bellamy. She wanted a quote for a story she was writing. What happened to Juniper Table? I didn't respond. Let them write their headlines. I wasn't interested in throwing stones. But then came the day. I was sitting in the front room at Miriam's, organizing plates, when Malik poked his head in from outside. You're gonna want to see this. We crossed the street. Juniper Table sat there across from us, same building, same bones, but now with brown paper taped over the windows. A printed sign was taped to the door. Closed permanently. Thank you for the memories. That was it. 7 years of work. Torn down in a month and a half by people who thought food was content, not culture. I didn't gloat. Didn't take a selfie. Didn't send a snarky message to Camden. I just stood there. And I breathed. Juniper Table was gone. But the part of it that mattered? The part that fed people's hearts? That part never belonged to them. It belonged to me. And now to Miriam's. I went back inside. We had a soft launch scheduled for the next day, just friends, family, and a few neighbors. No press, no lines, no hype. That night I cooked slow. Peach glazed duck. Corn spoon bread. A chocolate tart with a cinnamon crust my mother used to bake on cold mornings. Every movement in the kitchen felt like homecoming. I wasn't back. I was becoming. I didn't sleep the night before we opened. It wasn't nerves, not really. It was something deeper. A quiet vibration under the skin. Like my bones could feel the turning of the page. A new chapter. One I wrote. I got up at 4:30 a.m. No alarm. Just instinct. Walked into the kitchen at Miriam's, turned on the lights, and stood there for a minute. Breathing it in. The smell of lemon oil on the cutting boards. Warm dough proofing in the corner. Steel, wood, cast iron, old tools, ready hands. It wasn't perfect. Some of the paint still smelled fresh. One of the chairs wobbled. And the ceiling fan made a soft clicking sound I still hadn't fixed. But it felt right. It felt true. Fiona showed up first, hair pulled back tight, clipboard in hand. "You ready?" she asked, like we were heading into a storm. I just smiled. "Always." By 5 p.m., the dining room was full. Not crowded, not trendy, just full. The kind of full where the room hums with low laughter and silverware clinks against plates, and strangers start to feel like family halfway through the meal. And the faces. Oh, the faces. Ruth and Arlen were there, in the same kind of booth, same corner, no granola brisket in sight. Ruth hugged me. Arlen just nodded and said, "Feels like home again, son." Carmen brought out dessert to a table of teachers from the school across the street. They all teared up over the coconut cream pie. Said it tasted like being six again. And then I saw Malik, out of the kitchen for a second, standing in the doorway. He didn't say anything, just looked around the room. Then he turned to me and said quietly, This is what a restaurant is supposed to feel like." There was no DJ. No foam. No hashtags. But there was meaning. Every plate that left our kitchen told a story. And then, right before close, someone walked in. Alone. He wore a black coat. Hair slicked. Eyes scanning the room like a critic looking for flaws. Camden. He didn't order. Didn't sit. Just stood in the doorway. Looked around. Took it all in, the warm lights, the laughter, the food being enjoyed without performance. He met my eyes for just a moment. He didn't smirk. He didn't apologize. He just nodded, turned, and left. And you know what? That was enough. I didn't need an apology. Didn't need a headline. Didn't need a stage. He had everything: money, branding, buzzwords. But I had something he never understood. Roots. You can cut down a tree. You can strip the branches, repaint the bark. But if you don't understand the roots, the thing that feeds it, it'll never live again. I built Miriam's on those roots. On sweat, memory, and love. On meals that mattered. We closed that night at midnight. The last guests lingered, telling stories they hadn't told in years. Fiona locked the doors. Malik raised a toast with leftover cider. Carmen cried when she saw the first batch of comment cards, every one of them glowing. And me? I stayed back in the kitchen. Sat on the prep table. Closed my eyes. Not because I was tired, but because I was finally at peace. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. Not to Camden. Not to the critics. Not even to myself. I just wanted to feed people. And now I could.